The Tigers have the best record in baseball at the All-Star break, but with the All-Star game behind us and the trade deadline looming, the question is, how can they still improve? We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, July 17th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Welcome in, welcome all. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope you have all had a solid week so far. This All-Star break week in Major League Baseball. We'll talk a little bit about the All-Star game itself at the end. I know this is 2 nights removed from your perspective, but I wasn't going to stay up till midnight just to talk about the All-Star game. So we will talk about that a little bit on today's show, but a majority of the program today is going to be about what has, I feel even gross kind of saying what went wrong for the Tigers in the first half. Not much. Perspective is important. This is a Tigers team that literally has the best record in baseball at the All-Star break. I think that is important to remember throughout this entire episode, okay? And we did all the positives on yesterday's show. We did what has gone right and highlighted the reasons why the Tigers find themselves with the most wins in Major League Baseball. But I also think that it's very important, especially with the trade deadline looming, but I think it's in general important to continue to point out the areas of improvement. That's why we do what went right and what went wrong when we talk about individual games, right? That is something that I think it's important to highlight the good and the bad, no matter how good or bad a stretch of baseball or a game of baseball or a season of baseball is for a specific team. I also think that it would be naive not to point out that there are still glaring issues for this team, which you can, like we talked about on yesterday's show, you can kind of look at in like a glass half full way of like, oh, they have 59 wins at the All-Star break, and there's still a lot of areas for, large improvement. That could be viewed as a good thing, right? But it would be disingenuous and honestly ignorant to just look around and just be like, oh yeah, everything's fine, let's just pretend like there's no issues on this team. There are a few glaring issues that will be the demise of this team if they are not addressed. There's a couple of problems we'll talk about today that are that dramatic, where it's like, if this doesn't get addressed at the All-Star break, this team is in serious trouble. Not necessarily that they're going to collapse so hard they just don't make the postseason at all or anything like that, but you can set yourself up for failure in October and in playoff baseball if the Tigers just do nothing here at the deadline. So let's start with, in my opinion, what is the most glaring issue of this team at the present moment, and that is the bullpen. We talked on yesterday's show about how Will Vest and Tommy Kahnle for a majority of the season have been absolutely lights out. Kahnle's numbers now on the season don't look very good, but he's only had 4 or 5 really bad starts. Everything else, he had a sub-2 ERA on the season 2 weeks ago. So kind of has skidded into the All-Star break here, but has been trustworthy and solid at the back part of the bullpen for a majority of the season. Will Vest has been phenomenal. Will Vest is on pace to be legitimately one of the more valuable relievers in all of baseball. He has over 1 F-WAR already at the All-Star break. I mean, if you are a 2-win reliever, you're pretty darn good at your job. Everybody else literally everybody else has been a roller coaster or a revolving door of trust, if you will. And that's like at best. At worst, they just straight up haven't been trustworthy. Let's go over some numbers about what this team is looking like at the All-Star break in terms of their bullpen. The Tigers have used their bullpen the sixth most. Is that worded correctly? Their bullpen has the sixth most innings pitched in all of baseball. That's a heavy usage, right? This is, and we know how AJ Hinch manages his pen, and we saw that last year. This is a bullpen that has been used a lot. So I think that's important for context as well. These bad numbers I'm about to read you are not just, if we have our starters going 7 or 8 every night, we'll be fine. No, they're getting used a ton. The Tigers are 21st in baseball in ERA from relief pitchers. They are 26th in baseball from wins above replacement, according to Fangraphs, because I think it's better, especially for pitchers. But bullpen WAR especially is like, we're really... I'm trying to highlight a point. I don't think that should be like the end all be all for analysis and breakdowns of relievers. But for what it's worth, 26th in bullpen FWAR. I think this kind of all stems from a conversation we've had a lot on this program over the year, and that is the Tigers bullpen is 29th in baseball in strikeout rate. Just straight up how often they strike out their opponents as relievers in the Tigers major league team. 29th, second to last for those keeping score at home. Now, those aren't good. You're talking about bottom 10, pretty comfortably a bottom 10 bullpen in baseball over the course of the season. They got off to a really good start, and then they eased up a lot on that really good start. So a point that I want to highlight further is the bullpen just since June 1st. Because I think that tells a little bit more of the story about where the Tigers are at currently with their bullpen. I don't care how the bullpen did at the end of April. I care about what the bullpen is doing right now. But you also need a big enough sample size to, justify numbers. So since June 1st, a month and a half, the Tigers bullpen ranks 30th in FWAR, negative 1.1. That's really bad. They are 30th in K rate, dead last, and they are 26th in bullpen ERA. And that number is like almost 5.2 is the ERA of the bullpen, or the ERA of relievers, opener and all that, but ERA of relievers since June 1st. And that number, or those numbers, are all while the Tigers bullpen has the third most innings pitched since June 1st. The third most used bullpen in baseball has been arguably the worst bullpen in baseball. That is a massive, massive, massive problem. And it would be stupid to ignore. You need relief pitcher help. You need strikeouts from your bullpen. You need swing and miss stuff from your bullpen. And hopefully, if you bring in multiple, I just read you the numbers. I don't need one reliever. Go all in or all out. Pick a lane and do it. I would rather they did nothing at all than traded a mid-tier prospect for one kind of okay reliever. Go and get multiple swing and miss relievers that you trust in high leverage situations, because right now this team maybe has one, and it's Will Vest. We talked about Canely. He was really good for a majority of the season. Hasn't been good lately. Brant Herter, been an up and down season. Tyler Holton, been an up and down season. Chase Lee was really good, has also kind of slid into the break here. And then you have the revolving door of like Matt Gage and Kenta Maeda, obviously at one point, and Dylan Smith and all these guys, Bailey Horn, right? Like all these guys that have just kind of filled in the back end here. And I guess none of those guys have necessarily been terrible. Dietrich ends, but they clearly need help in the bullpen stat. Okay, immediately. Okay, let's talk about everything else besides the bullpen. We'll talk about starting pitching, if there's any area for improvement there. We'll also talk about what I want to see from the position players in the second half or at the trade deadline. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Game Time. We've all been there, okay? You're logging on early, waiting forever for a concert ticket to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That is where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices usually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals on really any event that gets or that requires a ticket. Concerts, comedy, theater, obviously sporting events. If you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal, Game Time has zone deals that picks the best seats in your section for you. Also, obviously, a panoramic seat before you buy, a panoramic view of your seat before you buy. And the Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and so much more. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow as we start looking ahead and previewing what is to come this weekend and in the second half of the season for your Detroit Tigers. So talking about what has gone wrong or what has, what could still be improved upon in this great first half of the season for, Bradley Beal going to the Clippers, eh? How about that? Again, I think it's an important exercise to do, even though the Tigers are having such a great year. We talked about the bullpen in segment 1. Jack Flaherty, we will talk about here. From the starting pitching side of things, he's really the only glaring weakness so far in the first half. I mean, we can get really intricate and overly critical, right? I'm not going to say anything negative about Tarek Skubal. He's the man. But Casey Mize could get more strikeouts and could get more swing and miss. Reese Olson, obviously stay healthy. I guess you could say that about Casey Mize too. But, Reese Olson's fastball, I've talked about that, just kind of getting more efficient since coming back from injury. But Jack Flaherty's really the only guy that throughout the course of the season has yet to put a stretch of good outings together. 0.9 F4 on the season and a 4.65 ERA. Now, his last few outings have been weird, to put it, I guess, one way, just because they have started off really poorly and then kind of recovered and ended up being okay outings at the end of the day. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think, again, just in terms of where could this team improve? Is there room to improve on the starting pitching side of things? Of course. And I think that the numbers and the production, I should say, that the Tigers have got from starting pitchers this year is really solid. It's toward, the top 10 in baseball. Obviously, Tarek Skubal helps that a bunch, but even outside of that, we've gotten really good starter production from Cater Montero and from some of these depth guys, and then obviously Olson and Mize with ERAs around 3. have been really good too. So I think it is, there's two parts to this. One, Jack Flaherty needs to improve. Okay, you need him to look a lot like he did last year, especially going into a playoff series. I would feel a lot more comfortable with 2024 Jack Flaherty, Tarek Skubal, and then whoever you want to use, Olsen or Mize. I'd probably lean Olsen, but like whatever they want to do, kind of in the top three. If you want to have a 4-man rotation, then fine, you can just use all 4 of them. But to use a 4-man, you need Flaherty to improve. The other part of that is, as it stands right now, on July 17th, you only have 4 starting pitchers. And I think that that's just like not talked about very much. Like Dietrich Enns has gotten some starts. Obviously, I've been a big fan of what Cater Montero has done this year. You had Sawyer Gibson Long for a little bit before he got hurt again. But like, would I prefer the Tigers to go out and trade for a solidified high-end starting pitcher at the deadline instead of any of those names I just mentioned? Abso-freaking-lutely. Because injuries can still happen in the second half for starters. You don't want to just completely deplete your depth with one more injury to the rotation. But on top of that, you kind of just need innings from your starting pitchers because your bullpen stinks right now. So I hope I've painted that picture decently. We'll talk a lot more as we approach the deadline about kind of individual names that maybe the Tigers will go after. Lugo's going to be a big talking point, obviously, expiring deal in Kansas City, but there's a lot of like starting pitchers are just always going to be a hot commodity at the deadline. Same with relief pitchers, right? So like this conversation of, like the Tigers should go after so-and-so and so, it's like, okay, like I don't disagree with you that, that person's probably a good player on a team that's, going to be selling. All of that's fine and dandy. Every single playoff team needs pitching. There's not a single playoff team that's like ever existed that has just like gone into the deadline and be like, oh yeah, we have no need or no desire to improve our pitching. Like the 2015 Royals maybe are like an exception to that. But even then, like, I don't know. I think that is important to remember. There's a reason that those price tags are always decently high at the deadline. And that is because classic, basic, middle school economics right there, right? They are wanted. And so the price is going to go up. Let's talk about offense. I think that there is a couple of just glaring weaknesses on the offense. As a whole, I have very little to complain about on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about that a lot yesterday. If you want to go listen to like all the positives that have happened with position players, this is an offense that could throw out 9 guys that all have above 100 OPS pluses on any given night. And that is something that not very many teams can say. That being said, they don't do that. And it's important to point that out. They do not do that. They have Parker Meadows in center field. He isn't hitting well. They have Matt Bierling out there pretty consistently. He isn't hitting very well. Trey Sweeney's gotten a lot of playing time. He's been hitting really poorly. Like there is not a lineup they're going to throw out there with where all 9 of those guys that are, above a 720 OPS are all going to play. So there are still holes to address. Center field is a weird one because the center field production from the Tigers isn't horrible on the season, but that's in large part due to the fact that Javi Baez was playing good center field for a while. And then Winfield Perez came back and played decent center field and obviously hit very well. They either need Meadows or Bierling, I guess, to take center field by the horns and hit way, way better. And, really both of them like improve defensively, etc., and be what they were last year and be that in center field for the Tigers in the second half, which you can, I guess, kind of hold your breath and bank on, or you can go out and acquire a legitimate center fielder. And I know that that's kind of like, I don't know, tilt your head reaction maybe to some parts of the fan base, I am a huge fan of Parker Meadows. I think he's going to be fine long term. Like I really am not even worried about like him career wise yet. Matt Vierling has been so consistent really for this team up to this point in his Tigers tenure, and you're looking for him to get back into form there. I'm not worried about them long term, but if they're the only guys you're really going to heavily consider playing in center field, then maybe it's time to look for like a cheap rental center fielder that you don't mind hitting 8th or 9th and that can play good defense out there. Not a must at all. Bullpen, a must. One starting pitcher, a must. Center fielder, not a must. There also is then the argument of, oh, well, just put Javi back out there. Okay, we can do that. Then Trey Sweeney's back at shortstop. Or Zach McKinstry's at shortstop. Okay, well then who the heck is playing third base? I don't know. Great skit. My point is, you're always kind of, it's like you're trying to plug a pipe with your thumbs and there's 3 holes in the pipe and you have 2 thumbs. And just no matter what you do, okay, well then you're just moving the position of need to that you need to acquire rather to a different position. And again, all of this is fixed if one or both of Meadows and Vierling start hitting. But if they don't, you're going to be one position short. So that is something to keep in the back of everybody's mind as we head into this trade deadline season. You can go out and get a third baseman. You can go out and get a shortstop. You can go out and get a center fielder. You do any of those 3 things, you're going to be able to clog the holes in that pipe a lot easier. We'll see what they decide. Let's talk about some of the other individuals offensively that I think either have struggled or are playing themselves into like, what do you do with them going forward territory. Then we'll talk a little bit about defense and then the All-Star game really quickly. We'll do all of that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in, as always. So the only other players I really want to bring up offensively are like Trey Sweeney. I already kind of said him in passing, but, had every opportunity to just be the everyday center fielder, everyday shortstop, rather, while Javi was in center field and did not do that at all. Has an OPS, I think, that still starts with the number 5. Javi's going to play shortstop at full health. Trey Sweeney is not even on this major league roster. Jace Young, I think is important to bring up. This is a guy that had the red carpet just rolled out for him going into the season to just be the third baseman and has done next to nothing with that opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that he still can't take it going forward. He's still pretty young. Down in Toledo, he has made mechanical adjustments that the Tigers, media and brass seem to be pretty excited or relatively optimistic about. I also think that Jace Young is like a prime trade candidate. I think that just kind of makes sense for where the Tigers are at. They've gotten good production from second and third base without him up here. He has yet to really do much of anything at the major league level. If there's another organization that still believes in the potential or the mechanical changes he's made, then I think that you have to at least consider that option. The flip side of that is like, is there an organization that is going to actually believe in that? And to that, I say good point, and I don't know. So we'll see what kind of happens with him. Andy Ibanez obviously was such a valuable part of last year's team and now is in Toledo. So that's something that you wish could go differently here in the second half. The only other player I really want to talk about offensively is Kerry Carpenter. Now, before you get like all red in the face mad, I don't mean that he's been like terrible. Okay. I'm not putting him in the same category as Meadows and Vierling and Sweeney and Young and Ibanez. Okay. Like he is a middle of the lineup bat on this team when he is healthy. There's a few things that I think give me pause when talking about his role on the team in the second half. One, he's been hurt for a substantial amount of time, pretty much every year of his big league career up to this point. Two, he's really kind of proving AJ right in the sense that he has been a platoon and he hasn't hit lefties very well now in a couple of seasons. So you're talking about a platoon hitter that has been hurt a lot. And this year, for the first time, he had not been hitting very well for a prolonged period of time. That's probably the biggest slump, I guess you'd call it, of Kerry Carpenter's career there at the end of May going into June. So the reason that this gives me pause is not even as much like I don't believe in Kerry Carpenter. So again, don't get like mad at me. The reason why more so is just because he can't play center field and Winfield Perez is hitting. And look, if Vierling and Meadows continue to not hit, then Carpenter's going to continue having a spot on this team because you're going to have a spot open in the outfield. Obviously, you're not putting Carpenter in center field, but like you'll figure it out and he'll get playing time. He's not the guaranteed DH every day. Colt Keith's been playing really well, doesn't have a spot in the lineup every day. You have to play Zach McKinstry at this point. He's playing far too well. Like he's not like the guaranteed DH he was when he first got called up. And again, like Winfield's just been hitting better. So I think it's again, I'm not trying to say like get him out of here or he stinks. Like, everybody take a deep breath. I'm just questioning what his role would be on the team when he comes back. It really seems like it would be, right field / DH only against righties. And I don't know, like how valuable is that down the road, and is he going to be able to stay on the field in that scenario? So yeah, like we'll see. He kind of has had that role in the past and been incredible in it. So like I have no issue with him. This isn't like an advocate to get rid of him. I'm just saying I think it would help the team a lot if he improved in any of those things I just mentioned. If he started hitting lefties, that'd make everyone's lives a lot easier. If obviously stay healthy, but that's kind of like, more of a macro thing. I'm not really sure he can prove that in the last 2 months of the season this year. But this is kind of all fixed if he just goes back to, I say it as if it's easy, the offensive production that he was putting up in the first year and a half of his career, because then there is no conversation about like, where do you put him? Whatever. It's like, okay, well, he's going to go in against righties because he rakes against righties. So hopefully that is the case here in the second half, but just something, again, if we're really talking about everything that, maybe has gone wrong even a little bit for the Tigers, I think that's worth at least bringing up. Defensively, the Tigers have had great outfield defense this year. They grade out fantastically, metric-wise in their outfield defense. Their infield defense is another story. They're 22nd in baseball in outs above average from the infield, -8 OAA on the season. Glaber, not a great defender. Trey Sweeney, not a great defender. The revolving door at third base, Zach McKinstry, I guess is great, but like there's still like Andy Ibanez played there. He's not like a Gold Glover over there necessarily. Torkelson, while he's been far improved, is still like not, a Gold Glover over there either. So I don't know, like if you can, I don't know if there's a way to fix all of these problems at the deadline. You find a really good offensive third baseman that also plays great defense. Okay, well, that sounds like a really good player that's going to cost you a ton. Everything I just mentioned is not just like grow on trees. You're talking about like an all-star caliber third baseman there. So we'll see if that's something that can be improved. But again, just doing due diligence, I think that's worth at least bringing up. That's pretty much all I got. This has obviously been a really successful first half. I want to make it abundantly clear that like I really have the only issue we brought up today that I am like pounding my fist on the table. You need to make personnel changes in this department is the bullpen. I would like another starting pitcher. I would like, some sort of offensive boost to this team. However, I think the need here is honestly multiple relievers. And hopefully that's something that can be done. All-Star Game. The swing off was really cool. I liked it. I would never want to see it in a regular season or obviously a playoff game. I don't want it in games that matter. But for like a fun exhibition, I think it was awesome. I think it was really cool. And I think it's important to make that, distinction. I had no issue with it. I thought it added a lot of excitement to the game. The American League falls just short, obviously, in the swing off, home run derby, whatever you want to call it, tiebreaker there after the ninth, which is rare for my generation. I guess I'd have to go back. I'm not really sure how it was back in like my parents' generation or anything, but in my generation, the American League is pretty much dominated, especially the last 15 years have been complete and utter domination from the American League side of things. So Tigers have 6 All-Stars. They don't do very well. We need to take a deep breath as like a society. Okay. If you are legitimately, and I'm not talking about like, here's a funny post online or, oh, I'm going to like be sarcastic and complain about it because I think it's like funny. I did that. Okay. That's one thing. If you are legitimately mad or like think that the Tigers' performances in the All-Star game are indicative of like the team in any capacity, you need to take like the deepest breath ever. Okay. Relax a little bit. I don't know. Spend some time with some people you love. I'm not sure, but like I saw way too many people that I think were like actually legitimately upset or like concerned based on the Tigers' performance in an exhibition game that doesn't count to anything. Okay. Glad we got that out there. Eugenio Suarez looks like x-rays came back negative for those who want to acquire him at the deadline. So that's a sigh of relief for a lot of buyers and the Diamondbacks, honestly, at the deadline. And yeah, Aaron Boone's hilarious. Like that, just it's so funny. Yankees fans have been complaining about him as a manager for years and years and years. And we were all like, you guys are being dramatic. We had one game with Aaron Boone as our manager, and we were like, okay, maybe you guys are onto something. But yeah, kind of, Tigers, Tigers do not. Frankie Boyd was probably the MVP of the Tigers All-Stars. I'll put it that way, which is, good for Frankie. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will, of course, be back tomorrow taking a look at what lies ahead for Detroit, previewing the games coming up as well. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.